Welcome, everyone. Yes, change your name to add your team number. Good evening. Thanks for coming. All right, it's about 7 o'clock. I'm gonna launch a poll real quickly to see where we're coming from. So go ahead and vote. What region are you from? All right, we got some North Texas, a little bit of Rio Grande Valley. Kind of lets me know which regions are gonna be breaking more rules on Saturday. Yes, please answer the poll when you get a chance. Okay. Well, it's 7 o'clock sharp. Thanks for the poll. It looks like most of us are from North Texas, Central, and Rio Grande Valley. So it looks like West Texas and East Texas haven't got any representation yet in this meeting. So, and that could have been a communication problem, but thanks for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank, first of all, Joseph for being here, who's going to be refereeing, I believe, as well as running the events and the volunteer coordination. So, and I'd like to welcome Bill, who will be the event head referee. And he was a head referee last year at the Texas Cup, correct? Not the head referee, but one of the head referees. And he stepped up to be the event head referee. So to him, I give up the presentation.
All right, welcome everybody. This is the remote portion of the drivers meeting for the Texas UIL Spring FTC tournament. We're gonna have a small, short drivers meeting on site, 10 to 15 minutes. That's more just in case when we hang up here tonight, you go, oh, I got that last question just before we hit the field. So that's the meeting just beforehand is going to be short and sweet. So just take it as being that ask your questions tonight. So with that, this is the UIL tournament. This competition will be a single division running on 2 fields. So we'll have an odds and an evens. And fields are always with first is from the perspective of the audience. Field 1 or the odds field is on the left. Field 2 or the evens field is on your right. So none of the matches, the scores, or the points from the regular season will carry over into this tournament. So everybody's starting from scratch. Everybody has 0 ranking points, 0 tiebreaker points. We're going to be playing 6 matches per team. So it's going to be a little fast and furious to get that extra match in for everybody. What to bring to this thing? Everything you'll need. Your robots, your batteries, your phones, gracious professionalism. You know, whatever you think you need, bring it. The big thing is a lot of the paperwork that you'd normally have at an event, this is all being done online. So that should have been in your team packets, where and how to get all that submitted. So do not bring canopies or frames for your pits as the judging is done at the field for this event. And do not bring anything with glitter. Glitter is a pain to pick up, and I don't want to spend the rest of my day doing that. Tournament schedule. It should have been in your team packets. There's also, it's not on the website. So go ahead and look at that. It's a little different between the 2 days, so I don't want to go into any detail on any given day. The schedule's a little rough, just more so because some matches are going to be faster than others. So we're going to try and adhere to it as much as possible and speed things up a little bit if we can, just so we have that little bit of leeway at the end for the awards. The biggest thing that the teams can do to help us stay on schedule is to do your pre-inspection the night before. That way nothing pops up on the morning of and you're going, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. Well, if you're doing the inspection with the same forms that we are, then nothing new can pop up. Game Manual 1, Appendix B and C have the hardware and field inspections respectively. So we'll be using the exact same forms, only we'll be using them digital on a tablet. So if you can make sure that you do that, that'll really help us in staying on time. Biggest thing here, we're all to have fun. We're all here to have fun, but we need to do it safely and with the first wide credo of gracious professionalism. It is assumed that all the teams are familiar with the rules as presented in the game manuals, both 1 and 2, as well as any clarifications that have been made in the forums. If you're not familiar with these sources, then you need to be. So make sure you are familiar with Game Manual 1 and 2 and the forums. There's been over 300 questions this year in the forums, and several of them have had direct impact on a few of the rules. So make sure that you're aware of those as well. Everything on this slide may seem a little redundant and basic, but even clear into the regional championships, we were still warning teams as they were coming to the field that get safety glasses on your eyes, not on the back of your head, not sitting in a pocket, not, So I reiterate, we are here to have fun, but we are here to do it safely. As you'll notice here, 3 of the competition rules reinforce that safety is priority. Alliance markers, badges, safety glasses are required. So at queuing, make sure you have all those things. There is no software changes in queuing. There's no electronic communications past queuing as per G11. So if it can be mistaken by the casual observer that it could be a cell phone that you're in use of, that is, personal use, not your robot controller, not for the driver station, then it's going to be in violation of the rule. Big thing here is earbuds, AirPods, headsets of any kind. Don't have them on you. When you leave queuing, they need to be either in a pocket or left with another teammate. Turn times are going to start and be maintained at a fairly high speed. We're getting, this is kind of the last event-ish for the season, so everybody should be, kind of knowledgeable on how these go. So we're going to be moving along at a pretty good clip. You need to be in queuing when the match being played on your field is match before yours is being played on the field. So if you're in match 3, then you need to be in queuing when match 1 is on the field, because we're going to have odds and evens. Same thing goes if you're in match 4, when match 2 is on the evens field, you need to be in the evens queuing. There will be 2 sets of queuing, 1 set for odds, 1 set for evens. So make sure you go to the correct queuing for you. There will be a sign that says, hey, odds, evens. So make sure you go into the right place. Keep an eye on the schedule and don't end up with a G13E match delay penalty just because you weren't in queuing on time. Again, being in queuing is on you, not on us. The schedule is really rough, depending on how they put in the breaks. If they put in lunch into the schedule, which a lot of times it gets skipped. So the schedule ends up being off by an hour or so. So make sure you're paying attention to the matches, not necessarily to the times that are on the schedules. We continue to see incorrect alliance markers making it to the field. This is kind of a big deal. Otherwise, we don't know who the robot is. So when we see a red robot, we expect it to be on the red alliance. And we check it at the beginning of the match, but sometimes we make mistakes as well. So make sure that your alliance markers are on the bot, the correct ones. Kind of a pro tip, put the opposite set that you don't think you'll need in your coach's pocket. That way, when they're in queuing, if you figure out, oh, I got the wrong ones on here, you can just swap them out right quick. So while you're in queuing, check over your team members, your alliance partners, and ensure that everybody has on their safety glasses. Make sure they're on your face, on your eyes, not on your forehead like we were just talking about. All right, we will be following a similar transition of the field control to what is used at the World Championships and was probably used at your regional championships as well. The head referee owns the playing field from the time the FTA confirms that robot setup is complete until they release the robots from the field and request it to be reset. This includes the randomization of the playing field elements. This includes all match periods, including the transition times, as well as the post-match score certification. The FTA owns the playing field from the time the field reset begins through the end of robot setup when they hand it over to the head referees. Okay, once the field personnel call you over from queuing, go ahead and perform your wiggle test. You do not need to ask for permission. You just put your bot down and do it. Remember that the whole purpose of the wiggle test is to check the connectivity of the driver station with the robot controller. It is not a capability check. It is intended to be a small movement, a twitch of a servo, a quarter revolution of your drive motor. It's not intended for you to drive around and get some last minute practice in. Make sure you calibrate your sensors as soon as you put your bot down. Make sure your robot is turned on. Make sure it is back in the 18-inch starting configuration as per G14, including your alignment devices if you have any, as per G15. Exactly one box must be preloaded or at least in contact with the robot. And the robot must be touching the playing field wall nearest the Alliance station and not breaking the plane of the warehouse. Big thing for that is you can't be in a scoring position. If you're breaking the plane of the warehouse, you can already be parked. So once the FTA hands the field over to the head referee, they will confirm one last time. Teams, select your autonomous op mode and initialize your robots. Blue Alliance, are you ready? When we say Blue Alliance, are you ready? We're expecting to see thumbs up for all the way down the Alliance station. So all 6 members in the Alliance box need to give us a thumbs up. We'll do a Red Alliance, are you ready? Again, thumbs up all the way down. Let us see that you are aware that the match is ready to start and that you're ready to play. Okay, place the driver stations in the hands-off area. At that point, you're not allowed to touch the controllers for any reason. The only thing that is allowed to happen at that point is when the referee goes 3, 2, 1, go, you hit start. Okay, there should be no confusion as to why we need to see the thumbs up all the way down the Alliance station. And everybody should be fully aware what they're saying or what they're conveying to the head referee when they give that thumbs up. By now, all teams should no longer need to do the double tap and hit start. But if you do, please drop it into the chat so that we are fully aware of what the team is and we can talk to you about not doing that and how we can help you to get to that point. The big thing here is if you have any continuous movement after initialization, then that's what this whole double tap thing is for. So please let us know. Just drop your name and drop your team member in the chat so we can talk to you later. Okay, autonomous. The head referee will start the match with 3, 2, 1, go. At that point, you hit the start button and autonomous is kicked off. From the point that we say go, no one is allowed to touch the robots for any reason during the match, including the field personnel. The only exception to that is the FTA. If they feel there's a safety concern, they can reach in and flip an off switch. That's the big reason why your off switch has to be out, open, and easily identifiable, is so the FTA can, in case of safety, reach in and flip it off. Okay, there will be 5 referees around the field. If one comes up to you in between the autonomous to driver controlled transition and they ask you to move, please let them peek through. They're just trying to see if your bot's in a scoring position or not so that they can properly score the field. All right, Alliance stations. During the match, the drivers and coaches must remain in their driver stations. Don't interact with the shared shipping hub during the autonomous period. There has been a lot of teams throughout the season that continue to replace the duck on the carousel during autonomous. This is a major penalty. You have the duck on the carousel, it is preset. It is not to be replaced until end game. So not only is it the major penalty, you also, that first duck is not scoreable. So be aware of that. Early on in the season, GS9D was updated from a major to a minor, but that does not mean that you should be doing it. Autonomous interference, it is what it is. Don't do it. And it's not just a one and done kind of penalty. It is every time it happens. you get another penalty for it, as well as GS3Es kind of stack up if the interference has to do with the alliance, with the opposing alliance's shipping hub. So GS11, do not touch the driver's station after randomization. You aren't allowed to get any points. Okay, reminder number 2, stay in your alliance station. We know everybody gets excited, but be aware of where your feet are. Big thing there is safety. We don't want a chance of a referee tripping over you or you getting to the point where you're in a place where it could be a safety issue. So remember, the coach position of the drive team is not allowed to touch the controllers. If you think you are being blocked, then call out loudly to the referees and we'll make the determination. It's going to be loud in this venue. We're going to have the FRC folks sitting right next to us. It's going to be loud. So make sure that you're just as loud so that the referees can acknowledge that they have heard you, or that you're waving your arms. I mean, do something, get our attention. Remember, we may not agree that you are being blocked, and the referee is the one who's going to make that determination at the field. So we will acknowledge that, yes, we hear you. We will acknowledge that, yes, we're looking at the situation, but that does not mean that we're going to instantly start calling it. Q294 and Q298 in the forums clarify that G29 should be applied to all situations where a game element is caused to end up underneath the shared shipping hub, even if the action is not deliberate. This is one of those clarifications in the forums where the forum overrides the rule. So G29 says explicitly for deliberate actions. It has been overridden and reapplied to in this particular case, even if it was unintentional. If a robot does cause any game element to end up underneath the shared shipping hub where the shared shipping hub is no longer scorable, at the point that that happens, it is instantly the G29 penalty. And that is the case even if later that same robot comes back and dislodges or makes it back to a scorable position. It's the act of it being made unscorable that is the penalty. We've continued to discuss at all levels with the overarching guidance from the GDC being to consistently as possible call all penalties on the field at any given event. So the GDC has confirmed and reaffirmed many times the forum answer for Q104 that teams are expected to maintain sufficient control over their robot so that there is no translational movement of the shipping hubs. So that is any shipping hub, the shared shipping hub and either alliance shipping hub. That said, the referees are being instructed that a GS3 shipping hub constraint is if any shipping hub is moved more than one floor tile tooth, it's approximately 2.5 inches. That is a full up and a full down on the tile teeth. Then a GS3 major penalty will be assessed. This is further applied to the rotational movement of the shared shipping hub, as one tile tooth equates to about 15 degrees when measured at the shipping hub edge. So when from the original starting line. This is a reasonable eyeball measurement that we can do repeatably at the field, and all of the referees can make that easy judgment. At the same time, the referee squad is aware that if they do see a particular movement that could not have affected gameplay, either positively or negatively, then applying G10 for a truly inadvertent and inconsequential contact or movement is allowed under GS3A. But remember that the application of G10 is an exception, not the expectation. Freight constraints. I'm going to read this verbatim because this particular rule has had a lot of questions in the forums. It's over 10 or 15 questions about this. So we're going to read this verbatim. GS5 freight constraints. The following are the constraints placed on the robots with respect to freight. A robot must perform the following sequence defined as warehouse operations to remove a piece of freight from the warehouse. Start completely out of the warehouse, then drive completely in the warehouse, then collect a single piece of freight. Whoop, that didn't work out right. I just whacked an extra button there. Collect a single piece of freight, then drive completely out of the warehouse with the collected freight. So that entire sequence as written is what must happen for a piece of freight to not be considered delivered improperly. Okay, Preloaded freight is considered to already be delivered from the warehouse. So therefore, even if it happens to get knocked back in, the preloaded freight does not have to follow the full warehouse operations. Okay, a robot, the last part of that is a robot must be completely outside the warehouse to score freight. So even if you have completely delivered it, you're not allowed to back up into the warehouse to score. You must still remain completely out of the warehouse to score the freight. Each violation of this is a minor penalty. So every time a piece of freight leaves the warehouse without following these constraints, it's a penalty. So just be aware of that. And like I said, there's a whole lot of forum questions that are dealing with this. So freight that is removed from the warehouse while a robot is entering may be excused from the GS5 penalties if the referee squad deems it to be truly inadvertent and not a game tactic, and therefore we can apply G10. This year, you may not launch any scoring elements as per GS6, and you'll get a minor penalty for each one that you do. Form Q25 clarifies what launching is not. Horizontal travel that is no more than 150% of the maximum dimension of the freight is not launching. So if you release a piece of freight, and for this example, we'll use a box, one of the little yellow cubes. The cubes are 2 by 2 cubes. So if that cube goes more than 3 inches from the robot, from where it leaves contact with the robot before making contact with the floor, it is a penalty. That is considered launching. Be very cognizant about this. Okay, your robot can control a maximum of 1 piece of freight. So a single box, a cargo, or a duck, as well as, in addition to a single piece of freight, they can also control their team shipping element. So duck delivery while in possession of another piece of freight incurs no penalty, as clarified in Q3 in the forums. However, Q44 does further clarify that if the duck falls on or into the robot, then it is considered controlled freight and a GS8 possession limits apply. If you were called for herding, then it is an immediate minor for each piece of freight above the max of 1, and an additional minor for every 5 seconds you continue to maintain control. If you score while in possession of more than 1, then each game element that is scored is a major penalty. So if you're in possession of 3 and you score 2, well, you got the immediate minors, as long as it was less than 5 seconds, but you still scored the 2, that's 2 additional majors. Then you have the 1 left that you are allowed to possess, and you can score that without penalty. If a piece of freight becomes lodged in your robot or gets stuck under the body or the chassis in any way, then that piece of freight is considered controlled by the robot and does reduce the number of freight that you can be in control of. So if you end up with 1 underneath, you can't have any for the rest of the game. Please refer to G4 for the justification on all of that. Reminder, number 3, G16, stay in your alliance station. In the heat of the match, we know that your focus will tend to isolate and you get focused in on doing exactly the one thing that you're trying to do. And you don't pay attention to your feet and you end up moving and sliding around. Please, it's a safety thing and we don't want to have anybody getting hurt at this. There's cables and cords that are around the field and things of that nature. And we make sure that as long as you're in the alliance station, you're perfectly fine. So GS7 states your robot can only make contact with the carousel rim and that you will receive a minor penalty for touching its top or bottom surfaces. This has been clarified a lot as well, that if you have one of the real squishy green wheels as part of your mechanism for turning it, just because it kind of wraps around the carousel a little bit, it's not actually pinching it and making contact. It's just kind of wrapping around a little bit. That's perfectly fine. What this rule is actually aimed at is if you are trying to rotate it by touching the top or rotate it by touching the bottom. That is where the penalty is incurred. All right, Game Manual 2, Section 454 states that any end game task that is started early will earn 0 points. This goes back to when we were talking about in autonomous, that if you put that duck on there on the carousel during autonomous, that's starting that in-game task early and it will have 0 points, as well as getting a major penalty. So gaming is 244 definitions for deliver and delivered. The action of introducing a duck or team shipping element onto the playing field. A legal delivery follows this sequence. A drive team places a duck or team shipping element onto the carousel platform, completely in the drive team side of the sweeper plate. The duck or the team shipping element must be in contact with the sweeper plate. Then the robot can begin rotating the carousel. As part of the rotation of the carousel, the sweeper plate must be what initiates the duck or the team shipping element, leaving the carousel and making its way to the playing field floor. If it is centrifugal force or some other motion that ends up causing the duck or the team shipping element to leave the carousel early, it is not a penalty because it was a valid attempt, but it does not get the points because it was not knocked off by the sweeper plate. The GDC stands by there being no provision to rectify a duck that is stuck on the carousel. This has happened a lot in the central region. It happened a few times in other regions, especially around the world, that if a duck it happens to be placed on the carousel in a very particular place and you begin to spin the carousel, the duck will come up, but it will end up in a position where the sweeper plate will not remove the duck from the carousel, and it just sits there and spins in the center of the carousel. At that point, there is only two options for the team. They can take the major penalty, and once the robot stops moving the carousel, they can reset it. Again, that is a major penalty for making contact with it after it has delivery attempt was started. Or you just take it as is and you don't score anymore. So that is truly on the team to figure out how they want to deal with that situation. Once a duck or TSE is placed on the carousel and drive team member's hand is removed, then any future contact with that game element by a drive team member while it remains on the carousel will receive a major penalty. This was fully explained in question 301. The end of the match is signaled by the start of the buzzer. At that point in time, when the buzzer begins, you need to press stop and put the controllers down. The bot must be at rest by the end of the buzzer. If you fail to hit the stop button within the allotted time, then you will incur a G20 minor penalty, unless the referees feel that you were doing it to gain a competitive advantage, in which case it'll be a major penalty. What this means is when you hear the buzzer, hit stop, put the controllers down. Even if you're trying to get in that last little bit to get parked, if your hand is not off the controllers by the end of the buzzer and the stop button is not pressed by the end of the buzzer, it is a penalty. So please be aware, this is kind of the big warning of this. So you must hit the stop button, not just get the controllers down. Wait for the referee to indicate that it is safe for you to pick up the robots before entering the field. Please remember to remove all game elements, the boxes, the cargo, the ducks, from your robot when you leave the field. But at the same time, definitely take your TSEs. They had a whole stash of them at our regionals where we were just keeping them and going, hey, oh, you're back. Here you go. Just a reminder, this is FTC and not FLL, so there will not be a team review of the scores at the field. If you have a question about the scores, then after they're posted, head on over to the question box. This was clarified in the forums in question 216. The head referees will be answering questions in the question box corresponding to the field that you played your match on. So there will be an odds box and an evens box. Make sure you go to the correct box for the match that is in question. If it happens to be a question about just a general game question or a particular philosophy or intent of a rule, then please go to either question box and I'll probably field those myself. That way our head referees can stay focused on the matches. So remember, you must be in the question box if it is about a match within 3 matches of the match that was played. So if the match in question is 4 prior, then you must be in the question box prior to match 8 beginning. So you've got 5, 6, and 7, and before 8 starts, you must be in the box. Now, I will recognize that yes, you're there, and I will let the head ref know. If the head ref happens to not be able to get there before match 8, that's perfectly fine as long as you were there and we acknowledge that you were there. So remember that the head referee's ruling is final. And as per competition rule CO2A, referees will not review any recorded match replays or photographs. We will also shut down any conversations that end up being a total what if scenario. So if you have a question about the rule, that's one thing. If you have a, well, what if we did this and what if we did this and what if, I'm sorry, we cannot make a definitive judgment until we see it on the field. So any of those hypothetical situations, we will not be able to make a ruling on. Game Manual 1 was last updated before any of the regional championships were played. So there is no reason to not be fully aware of what is in Game Manual 1. And Game Manual 2 hasn't been updated since the beginning of the season. So no big thing there. The big rule addition that was in Game Manual 1, for those who may not be aware of it, is Driver Station Rule 8 and Robot Controller 10, that you cannot initiate sounds from either the driver station or the robot controller apps with team code. That does not include that if the Android system reboots, the Android noises or any of that, that's perfectly fine, but you cannot have your own sounds being played during the match. All right, the last forum question that we will be using is Q308. If any more happen to pop up before the event, we will, and they're pertinent to the event, we will discuss them at the driver's meeting on site. So remember your resources, please be fully aware of these. And make sure you bring them to the question box. Hardware inspection on early in the morning, or the for a few teams, it'll be the evening before. That we'll be doing the inspections. As part of the hardware inspections is when you need to have your team shipping element inspected. So as per question 236 in the forums, that team shipping elements are not to be shared amongst teams or simply have a team number changed. So if you have a piece of duct tape on the team element and you just write the number on it and then you rip it off and give it to the next one, that is not legal. You need to have a permanently affixed team number as part of the inspection. Okay, at the same time, team shipping elements can be permanently donated to another team and they can affix their number on there permanently. So if there is a situation where a team needs to have a team shipping element inspected after robot inspection, then please bring it to the question box and we will find the appropriate personnel to get it inspected. The big thing here is that the folks who are going to be doing the inspections have other duties throughout the day. So they aren't just hanging out waiting on you to come ask them to inspect the TSE. So we'll have to go find the right folks and find the tools and get it done. Please refer to the forums about this. There have been several questions, the latest one being question 305. Field inspections. Okay, big thing here is your driver stations must have the correct matching or compatible version with the robot controller. So driver stations 7.0 and 7.0.1 are compatible with robot controller version 7.0. Driver station 7.1 is compatible with robot controller 7.1. If a team has them mismatched, you will not pass field inspection. So make sure that you check this. This is part of doing that night before check. Make sure everything is ready to go. You can do this by turning them on and doing the self-inspect on your device. All right, with that, Lon, is our FTA on?
No, I didn't even think to invite him. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll get a briefing from the FTA at our 15 on-site minute meeting there. So with that, I think we're ready to open it up for questions.
All right, so the way we're going to handle questions is if you want to ask a question, let me know in the chat that you have a question and I will unmute you. This is the time to ask questions about the rules or the events, and hopefully we will have the answers. I believe everyone here has the ability to chat still, so go ahead. While I'm waiting for people to respond in the chat, I posted that there is, for teams that have not made a team shipping element this season, I would highly recommend looking into the FTSE, FFUTSE. It's the Freight Frenzy Universal Team Shipping Element. It's real easy. You can print it out, tape it together, and write your name and number on it. And it's a legal game team shipping element. All right. I'm going to give a 30. Okay. I'm going to unmute you. Can you ask your question, Shreyas?
Hi. So I was just wondering, so if at the end of autonomous we park in the warehouse, in your presentation you said that we have to start outside of the warehouse and then enter. Do we have to leave the warehouse and re-enter to score, or can we immediately start scoring?
You can immediately start collecting. You cannot score from the warehouse at all.
Yeah, sorry. My mistake.
But yes, no, because you would have started outside. We make sure that you start outside of the warehouse prior to the match starting. And so entering the warehouse during autonomous is perfectly fine. That is part of that action.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and friends, you don't have to type your question in the chat. Just type that you have a question and I will unmute you. All right, Isaiah from team 8214, please go ahead and ask your question. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, so my question was concerning what is considered control. Does it have to be fully inside the bot, or can it be like between intake?
Control is if the robot moves and the game element moves with the robot, then you are in control of the game element. This is something similar with the duck, because that's going to be one of the questions that I'm sure is going to pop up. Am I in control of the duck if it's pinched between the robot and the playing field wall? You're not in control of the duck if you move the bot away from the wall and the duck falls straight down. If the duck was to follow the robot and continue to move with the robot, then you would be in control of the duck. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have a question. If while trying to collect cubes and balls, and one rolls out of the warehouse, but there is no attempt to later get it and score it, is that a penalty?
Yes and no. It depends on when it happened. If it's during autonomous, it's an autonomous action, and odds are the referee on the field is going to deem that to be an unintentional action. And as part of entering the warehouse, then when you enter the warehouse and something happens to bounce, as soon as, especially the cargo in this, is they bounce off the wall. As soon as they hit the wall or they hit anything else, they're no longer in your control. So that's perfectly fine as well. The big condition with this is if you are trying to leave the warehouse and there is something in your way and you hit it and it leaves the warehouse, that will be a penalty. So it is definitely a kind of subjective thing, and it'll be totally up to the situation. And again, we can't what if and give it a total answer for every hypothetical on this.
All right, referee Mark has a possible clarification on control. Go ahead. I'm asking you to unmute, although I made you a
sorry to be a troublemaker, Phil. I heard the question about control, and I wanted to ask to clarify on a ball. If they're moving and they knock a ball out, and I think you're touching on it, they're in control of that ball until it hits something else, a wall or another ball or something. So you do have to be careful when you're in the warehouse.
Definitely. And it becomes one of those that part of the referees, what goes into the decision on that is if you go into the warehouse and we see you go in there one time and it happens, and then the next time you're like, oh, okay, and you start being careful about how you're entering the warehouse, that's completely different. If we see that every time you go in the warehouse, 5 pieces of freight leave the warehouse, it's a tactic at that point. And once it becomes a tactic, we need to have a conversation.
Thank you.
Wow, there's less questions at this than there was at our regional.
Yeah, it's or last year even. Well, there are only 8 teams here, so that I guess that means the other teams are going to be watching the video on YouTube later tonight or tomorrow on the trip to
Awesome.
Houston. So last call for questions, not only about the game rules, but if there's a question about the event, I'm going to give about 30 more seconds for someone to thank you, Jason from Team 8214. I like it when right when I'm threatened to close the meeting, there's always that one question that comes in. All right, go ahead, Jason. Thank you.
I have a question about depositing from warehouse to the shared shipping hub. When robots go over the barriers and they're on top of the barrier, does it count as fully out or no?
Fully out is out when you are no longer breaking the plane of the tape of the warehouse. So without seeing it, I can't give you a definitive answer. There's plenty of robots that they can be over the top of the bars there, and they're perfectly fine. They're completely out. There are other robots that they'll get their drivetrain stuck in that back position, and the back of the robot's hanging into the warehouse, and that is not fine. So the key there is the breaking the plane of the warehouse tape line.
And that's the outer part of the tape line.
Yes. The tape is part of the warehouse.
Yeah. I always imagine an invisible Star Wars-like barrier surrounding the warehouse. So. Okay. 30 more seconds. If there's no more questions, and we have one from Callisburg, Texas. Thank you, Corbin.
If I use my deviously good looks to distract the opponents, is that against the rules?
That's funny. Go ahead. That's actually a relevant rule.
Yeah, it is in a way. You're not allowed to distract them. If somebody is distracted by your good looks, then that one I would have to say was on them. But if you're over there going, hey, look at me, that's completely different. And yes, that is against the rules. Good question, though.
Yeah, I mean, you could also say, can the Red Alliance talk to the Blue Alliance during a match? What do you think? Is that a possibility?
That is not. Between within the alliance, yes. Alliance to alliance, no. Unless it is, there are, again, without being in the situation, first thing first is going to be, hey, stop doing that. Give that warning. If it continues, it's going to be the conversation and then the penalties. If it is something is, hey, I'm stuck, can you guys give me a bump? Well, if the other team wants to be nice and give the gracious professionalism and give you a bump, then by all means. I mean, having that kind of a discussion, that's completely different than, hey, stop doing that, or hey, you know, it comes to, it's very much subjective on what is the situation that we're in.
And if it becomes a problem, we might have to mandate a mask for you, Corbin. Okay. Can teams bring multiple team shipping elements to the event? Can they have like 4 versions of a team shipping element?
Definitely. And please do, especially if you're one of those teams that has the red solo cup and it's going to get crunched like every match. Please don't try and use that same solo cup duct tape a bazillion times. Bring a stack of them, bring a whole sleeve of them, and we can go, yep, we measured 1. Those are all the same. Your whole stack is good. We just want to see that your team number is on it. So. And if you do the printed piece of paper one, print out a bunch of them.
All right, final last call. The meeting will be closed in the next 2 minutes, but this is your last chance to ask questions directly to the head referee of the UIL FTC State Championship. And if there are no more questions, that's a good sign. That means you guys know the rules pretty well. Check the game forums.
Yeah, I honestly hope that nothing that was said tonight was new, that everybody was already fully aware of everything that we talked about today.
Question on if teams will have tables in the pits, and I believe the answer is yes. I think the tables in the pits are provided.
That is what the diagram shows. We will see if it actually happens, although it should.
And one other thing about the pits, while y'all are here, everybody in the pits is going to be next to a team from somewhere else in Texas from their own region. So please use that as an opportunity to get to know your neighbors and meet teams from West Texas, East Texas, North, South, Central. So that's what's going to be in the pits. And you will be assigned a place in the pits. All right, well, Bill, any last comments, or Joseph or Mark?
I'm good. Good luck. Congratulations on being at this event, everybody, and good luck at the event. Can't wait to see us on the field.
Yes, let's make the most of this event, guys, because not every state has UIL. In fact, only Texas has UIL. So this is a great opportunity.